But what about that? I mean, we can talk, for ad nauseum about Airbnb and its impact on the hospitality industry. And, a lot of hotel executives you'll talk to say they're not that worried about it. I think it's more, they'll say when there's compression in a city, right, that's where Airbnb kind of fills a role. But, they're not getting corporate travelers. That's what they say. That's what they hope, they don't tap into. But Airbnb is becoming more sophisticated by the day with revenue management and everything else. So. And at one point I'm sure they'll launch a loyalty program as well. So, well, what are your guys? I mean, have you all done Airbnb or HomeAway or one of these types of home sharing platforms before? Mm-hmm. Right, you're the only one who hasn't. Wow, you haven't either. Okay. Well, ask. So, what? How do you feel about Airbnb? Do you think it's going to ultimately, impact? It already has, but really kind of dig in and hurt the hotel companies out there? Do you find your friends are using them, family? What is your whole take on home sharing?
I personally encourage my friends not to use it.
Spoken like a revenue manager.
Yeah, I would rather offer my friends and family rate through one of our brands, right, and try to help them out that way before they turn to something like Airbnb. I mean, like you said, it's getting more sophisticated, so the security aspect of it is kind of going away, but at the end of the day, you're still sleeping in someone else's house, so you really don't know. I mean, those houses don't necessarily have like a cleanliness scale. They don't have like a security scale. You don't know who's been in there before, or like, there's just a lot of what ifs and, like a lot of stuff that could go wrong. And then, I mean, from the revenue side of it, I think that there's a lot of companies that probably are using things like that because it is a short-term rental. You don't have to sign into a lease. You can get, your travelers a place to stay for a long time. Right. But it's also just as much on the hotel industry for not, kind of grabbing it by the horns and, downplaying it. Yeah.
Well, I actually just wrote a column about that. You're right. There's also the worry that Airbnb isn't just someone's home anymore. It's it's a developer who's buying up buildings and literally just putting them out on Airbnb. And there's a ton of them that are illegal too. I mean, I live in New York, and I mean, I don't know what percentage, but the majority are definitely not legal because they're doing, if it's less than 30 days, which most of them are. I mean, people are staying at someone's apartment for a few days at a time. It's definitely illegal. And you talk about fire, life, and safety, all those issues that. But I will say this, that I think that hotel industry, to some extent, they, with OTAs, even with Airbnb, they kind of whine a little bit. It's always like, they're not following these rules, but I think you're right. They have to hit out and say, this is why staying at a hotel is better than doing an Airbnb. I don't think they might not do enough of that. It's more about just complaining and saying that, there's, regulations that they aren't following. So
I think it goes back to if you're saying that a hotel is better, then hotels as an industry have to provide more consistency. But when you have so many brands and everyone does things so differently, it's hard for the customer to differentiate the difference between a hotel and an Airbnb, because a hotel could mean so many different things.
Yeah, true.
And I guess I see people really, maybe I'm speaking from personal experience, but I think a lot of the times when I've stayed in Airbnbs, I try not to, I'm not really into it, but the times that I have, a lot of times what it's providing is something that the hospitality industry really can't, and that's part of the issue. Like, I think the last time I stayed in one, I was traveling for a wedding, and I ended up staying in a larger house with a big group of friends. Right. That was really fun, and we could never have done that with everybody's budget in a hotel. We couldn't afford a room block, to get everyone on that same page. Yep. So I think that the flip side of that is, the hostel type experience. So if you're just really needing a bed, and that's essentially it, you don't want to pay the hotel price for
hostels are getting, actually, when you talk about a lot of the ones in Europe now, some of these companies like Generator hostels, if you've heard of them. I mean, these aren't the kind of hostels that I grew up thinking about, where it was like, just a bit scary. Sharing bathrooms, that kind of thing.
I'm actually very enthusiastic about hostels, and it's like one of my biggest pet peeves in the U.S. hotel market is that they were slow to embrace this idea.
Is there Freehand? You guys know that brand, Freehand? Is there one in Chicago? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's kind of the hostel premise, though, right? Same kind of idea. Do you find that your cohort are staying in, or using these, and or
I don't think that, personally, I don't think that there's enough of them in the US to really have momentum yet. I think that will change. I know that anytime I have friends who are traveling abroad, or when I've traveled abroad, that's essentially where I've been staying, is, you know, not necessarily the typical what people think of, you know, a bed in a room of 30 people, but hostels that are focused on maybe you stay with your friend in a room with just bunk beds or something like that. And it's great because you're never there. You're exploring the city, you're doing things, you know, out and about. You don't want a huge room with a desk and tons of amenities and all this stuff. You're not using them.
You don't need it,
So
interesting take.
I mean, I'd kind of like to touch on the Airbnb. You know, Four Seasons from a luxury standpoint, you know, our focus is the service. And, you know, I think Airbnb maybe some of their properties have the service aspect, but at the end of the day, you know, hotels, you know, everybody has the product, but it's really the service that's the defining moment, and or the defining piece within Four Seasons. And I think, you know, when you come to a Four Seasons, our focus, you know, we talk about what's the definition of luxury. It's changed over time, you know, and so Four Seasons has really kind of said, you know, it's the absence of worry. So a guest comes in your door, they don't want to have to worry. They want to know that everything is taken care of, from the bed to their dinner reservations to, you know, their dry clean, whatever it is. And I don't know if you can really get that same experience in an Airbnb at this point. I don't know if that'll change, but so I think for Four Seasons, you know, we're really confident in the service aspect, so that's where we find the truth.
And I think too with Airbnb that it's been around long enough that they have their niche clientele. There's going to be the people that are always going to find the Airbnb and stay there. Now that they've had it once, they're just going to keep trying. But for instance, so we have a hotel in Louisville, and 3 years ago they sold out like $1,000 a night for Derby. And then 2 years ago, they didn't sell out, and it was only like $700 a night. So that was pretty much the biggest effect that Airbnb had on them. That was when the most apartments and the most houses in that area were on Airbnb. But then this past Derby, they were back up to like $900 a night, and they sold out again. So, I mean, they had the rough patch, and now I think people are starting to see, okay, we've done it once, let's go back to a hotel now the next year, or let's do that. So I think there are still going to be more and more people listing their, their rooms and stuff on Airbnb, but I think consumers have pretty much tested it out. They know whether they want to keep going back or not.
Some do though, but I agree with you. I mean, I did it in Spain actually it was a few weeks ago, and I got locked out of the apartment. Phone calls to the owner, and unresponsive. Whereas if I'm at a hotel and I lose my key card, it takes me 2 seconds to get a new one. So, you're right. It's all about the absence of worry, and that should be at any, not just luxury. I mean, that's a select service. That's at mid-scale. Same kind of thing.
I think from the owner's perspective, the question that we are pondering over is a the policy question, right? And I don't think necessarily we're scared of it. My own subjective opinion, we're not scared of that. We're just, our concern is that it's not abiding by the same rules our industry is.
Right.
And if that happens, then I think that model doesn't work with the tax structure that's there today. So the question comes to, on the policy side, right? Airbnb, I think, is spending, allocating like $100 million a year in lobbying funds, where AHLA has allocated like $10 million towards it, right? So I think fundamentally that's a concern for, at least for me as an owner and talking to other owners, is can we have the same policy across the board?